Kylie, Tom, how are you?
I'm great, Tom, and I'm really excited to be talking with you today. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all right. I know we had a little schedule, so it's nice to see you're fit and healthy now.
Thank
And
you.
I can't wait to hear your story. So, and in all fairness, I'm just going to take one step back. I don't know anything about you at all, so I really am looking forward to hearing your story. So, tell us, who is Kylie?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. So I'm Kylie Chown. I have a business which is my digital brand. And essentially we work with people, teams and organizations to grow their presence, but we primarily use LinkedIn. And then the extension of that is also looking at how we take our online interactions and take them into in-person meetings. So I do that through a community network that we've set up.
Okay, fantastic. How long has that business been going for?
The community network?
Yeah.
So we were known previously under a different name. So we had that for 5 years, but excitingly this year we've started afresh with it. So new name, new strategy, new community, same community, but a little bit different.
And what about prior to that? What was your journey moving into this business?
Yeah, absolutely. So primarily it's been in that LinkedIn space. So looking at how people, teams, organizations use LinkedIn, particularly around that digital first impression. And again, that's, I would say, the primary business that I've got. The community has been an extension of that because we've seen that it's great for people to look good online, to reach out, connect and engage. But it's really when you meet someone face to face that's really where you can form a really great connection with them.
Okay, all right. So throughout your career, LinkedIn's been your forte, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as you know, there's a lot of different social platforms out there. And I guess very early on, what I figured out for myself was personally, it would be really hard to keep across all the changes across all the different networks. So made a very conscious decision early to focus in on one platform and kind of went for LinkedIn, which isn't really the popular one or the one that people typically like. But I found it really does align and I guess give a lot of opportunities in that B2B space.
Okay, all right. I remember right at early doors in my recruitment career.
Yeah.
So you're talking 2010, 2012, something like that. And I got my first request from LinkedIn for
Yeah.
LinkedIn. It was a gentleman, he was a developer of some sorts, and he sent me a message, and I had no idea what to do. I was like,
Yeah.
this is peculiar. I hear this is now important, or it's going to be important. I don't think I ever did reply to the poor gentleman.
Oh no.
I didn't know what he did. It's
Yeah.
confusing. You know, obviously now it's a whole different story. So I remember
Of
when it was in
course.
its infancy. It kind of got a bit of a monopoly in business, LinkedIn. Do you think that will ever shift?
Yeah, look, potentially yes, but I think at the moment, I think it's really, if we look at the broader social media platforms and context, from my perspective, it's really the only one who's focusing more in that B2B space. And I think that influences the intention that people go to LinkedIn with. So when I go to LinkedIn, it's really much, I'm really looking around that workspace to look for, connections and engage with that work hat on or professional hat on, so to speak. When I'm on Instagram, when I'm on Facebook, I'm there typically more from a social perspective. So I think for those reasons, I think if we look at LinkedIn and having that presence, I think while they're the only platform that is really kind of focused in that professional B2, and again, a little bit kind of B2B space, it seems to have a really strong foothold in that space.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I nearly published a post, just a
Yeah,
post, not an article, nothing of any significance, but on LinkedIn,
yeah,
um, on how bad people reach out.
yeah,
Because I had one really bad one come
yeah,
into me a couple of days ago, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to call this out. Not
yeah,
for a poor individual. I'm not interested in
yeah, no, yeah,
because
absolutely.
people need to realise what it's like the other side of the fence.
Yeah,
Okay, and it was so bad, uh, and I laughed at it. There's no response to it. But then I thought of all the cliches.
yeah,
And there's a few of them there. I nearly created a post on it. I probably still will do
yeah,
now. You brought it to the front of my
yeah,
mind. what are the biggest cliches in your mind people do on the LinkedIn outreach?
Yeah, look, I think exactly what you've said. I think it's weird. I was saying this in a presentation last week. I was like, when you put a keyboard in front of people, they just get weird. Like it just something, something between a keyboard, whether it's a desktop or a mobile, something about typing, something happens there, and I'm not really sure what it is. But I think one of the things to remember is exactly that, is that there's a person at the end of that message. So, I try and talk to people around, if you met someone at a face-to-face event, like, is that something you would say to them? And if not, it's probably not a good idea to type it. So I think if we have that as an overarching, I guess, view on how we approach messages, I think when we look at that history, I think COVID really expedited this, because, that really pushed a lot of in-person interactions online. So I had clients, for example, who were typically like going out to site and seeing customers and things like that, and they couldn't do that anymore. So a lot of people then took those interactions online, and LinkedIn was the logical place to go with it, right? But I think as a result of that, there was not a lot of, in some instances, maybe not a lot of thought put into how you approach this messaging structure and what it looks like. I think now we've got AI coming into play as well. I think people are very deflective to messages that seem automated, that seem like they've been mass produced and mass sent. I think the easier, and I literally had a client meeting with them yesterday, and I'm like, we're sending 20 messages, that's it, and you're going to write them all. Yeah, and it was like, oh, but won't I get more responsive if I send, just like a template thing? And I was saying to him, okay, cool, flip that. If you get that, what sort of, like, how do you react to that? So I think it's just, there's a lot of cliche in messaging, but I think it's just bringing it back to, if you met that person face to face, is that something you would say outright to them? And don't get weird with the keyboard.
Yeah, weird with the keyboard. I like that one, but I think that's a really good cardinal rule there to how you communicate and synergies between things. To try and keep things as human as possible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm quite dyslexic, and I put errors in my, and you probably seen firsthand errors in my text. But what's worked out for me since I've been doing this, people like my errors.
Yeah.
It proves I'm not automated or whatever.
Yeah.
It sells, and especially with the rise of AI and the automation.
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly how that's coming through messages as well. I just think people may have had a tolerance for it early, potentially pre-COVID, but I just feel with the volume of it now, the tolerance people have to it is very nominal. And I guess then the issue then arises from that, is it comes back to that concept, is that you've got one chance at a first impression, right? So if you get a message like the message you've talked about, that person might be amazing and might have something, it might be an amazing connection for you, but that's kind of been burnt because the first impression that you have doesn't reflect that.
Yes, and I couldn't agree with you more there. So how would you say a good way to cultivate your LinkedIn brand should be outside of messaging?
Yeah, so I think there's three things that essentially people need to consider with their overall LinkedIn brand. The first thing is their profile, and that's essentially what they look like. And it's interesting, like I talk to people, and I would be interested to see if you find this as well. I talk to people and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. They've done really cool stuff. They're doing, they're doing, really great things. And then I look them up on LinkedIn, and it actually typically undersells them. I'd say probably 95% of people. So it's not about making their profile bigger and bolder than what it is. It's just actually typically lifting it to match them in person. So that's kind of the first element of the brand. And I talk to people about, you can do messages and you can do content, but people are going to be coming back to your profile. So it's a bit like a website, right? So if, you send traffic to a website, if it doesn't communicate in the best possible way, you're potentially losing opportunities there. So first thing is the profile, making sure the profile looks really good, but just aligning with who you are in person. The second point is content. So have a great profile, but, for that to come up in the newsfeed, you need to be sharing content or having that content. So whether it's you sharing content engaging on other people's content, making comments and things like that. And then the third element of that is the communication or the connection. So that's where we're talking about, that's where you message, that's where you're reaching out, that's where you're bringing in new connections. So from my perspective, it's really about those three things working together. People will then be able to establish a really authentic and strong brand on LinkedIn.
And I think that's important because it makes observations with LinkedIn. When people set up their LinkedIn, they sort of like put their flag in. That's it. Here I am. That's me. And the only time they really go to update it is when they change jobs.
Yeah.
You know, so that profile becomes historical. It's there. That's done. I forget about it. Yeah, they might post or whatever they do occasionally, but to your point before, their profile is like a property that hasn't been maintained. It needs a lick of paint. It needs a lawn done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's exactly that, and that's it. And I think that's a really key point. Is it's a lot of people's profiles are very historic, and there's a place. I think there's a place for some of that because it does show credibility and expertise. But I think ideally, like we want it to be like, to me, like personal brand marketing is not dissimilar to product marketing. We need to think about how it communicates how you can help someone's future as well. So where you want to go moving forward, what you can bring to future opportunities as well.
Yes, I love that. And I think it's always good to have your DNA per se on there. So showing a bit of your personality so that you're memorable, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There now. That needs to be the case. Okay.
Yeah.
And you work on brand as a whole, or
Specifically just on LinkedIn as a platform though. So typically we look at personal brands on LinkedIn, so individual profiles. What we're seeing at the moment as well though from an organization perspective is organizations looking to use LinkedIn to attract and retain talent. And I was having a conversation yesterday with someone and I said it was interesting, historically that has been like a side objective, but I'm actually seeing that come through more as well. So I think organizations are starting to see that how they present on LinkedIn through their company page, but also their key team member profiles, their executive team profiles, that influences, and you would know this more than anyone, but that will influence whether a potential candidate is going to engage with that employer moving forward.
Certainly is, and that's the marketplace. Everyone has access to the network at a fingertip now, so it needs to be serving you as well as possible. And for me, brand has evolved over the years from where its origins was obviously the Danish word, I think it was, to mean to burn, where they that was it, and it's moved into a sense of belonging or sophistication and so forth. So to understand how you make people feel when people stumble across you, are you memorable? Are you offering something that might benefit them? It's really important to be communicated there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, all right. Let's say fast forward 5, 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Where's LinkedIn going to be? What's going to be? What do you see the future of that platform?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like we need to acknowledge the AI influence on that. I think the shorter term, if I bring it back to maybe the next 6 to 12 months, I actually think more personalized content will do better. And it's exactly the reason what you were saying before, like if there's a typo in a message or a little mistake, people then go, oh, cool, well, I'm talking to a human. So I do think that anything that shows that you're human will do better from a content perspective because people will be looking for that more so. The video is interesting on LinkedIn. And I was having this conversation with someone. Yes, I had a lot of conversations yesterday, and they're all coming to mind. But we were talking, they were saying like, with video on LinkedIn, where do you see that going? And I'm like, that's really interesting. LinkedIn is obviously pushing video. It keeps people on platform. There's a lot of objectives from their perspective. But again, I'm not entirely sure with that either, because I think if we know LinkedIn user behavior, less than 5% of people on LinkedIn are creating their own content weekly. So I'm like, if the people who are on LinkedIn us, and I'm going to say struggling, and that could be for a number of reasons, but if they're not creating content because they're struggling to write content, I just don't see the majority of LinkedIn users embracing video when a lot of them aren't even creating content. So yeah, I'm still kind of thinking that one through, whether it's going to be something, how that's going to play out.
That's a nice, interesting, cynical point of view because but the thing is, each platform talks differently. So if you
Yeah.
talk, we're talking social media in general, and you've got TikTok. That's pretty much all it is.
Yeah.
You know, and how people use it
Yeah.
is important as well. So I don't really watch videos on LinkedIn, but I'll capture things. I'll read. I'll browse.
Yeah.
I'll search. So it's usability. But if I'm just chilling out for a second, I might go on Facebook and watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's what it's used for.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's a user behavior as well. So then it's like, okay, so if we want to get a whole lot of new video users on the platform, does that mean that the user base changes to support that? And it's just even, I guess, from reflection from clients that I work with, that, like I said, they're amazing. They're really, really good at what they do. They've got great insights. They know so much, but they still, a lot of them struggle to write a post. And if I suggested do a video, like they'll be like, see you later. So again, it could just be influenced by the people who I'm working with. But it's been my observation. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And again, like you said, it's the intention that you go with. So and I'm the same, like I'll go to Instagram to kind of be chilled and we'll maybe watch a reel or something there, but I'm not personally going to do that I don't do that so much on LinkedIn at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So talking about your business and you're going to be useful for people that are looking for new work and businesses that are looking for more customers. That's really where you sit.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's that people, what I found is that people, teams and organizations. So it can be people who have a business, experts, consultants, advisors, but also people who are looking to develop their career. So again, whether that looks like how they position for their next role, how they attract opportunities and things like that as well.
I can see that being very, very powerful for all of the above. And for sure, the listeners listening to this, which will be worldwide, there's a lot of relevance for it. So when this does get published, please do put your contact details in the comments below.
Yeah, thank you.
But anybody listening to this and just wants to listen to it, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you're going to be surprised to know probably LinkedIn's the best place to reach out to me.
I made it too easy for you.
I know, right? Yeah, so LinkedIn is really the best place. And it's probably it is my most active platform. So I'm happy for people to reach out to me there.
Love it. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much for your time. And,
Thanks, Tom.
And we look forward to seeing what comes of this for you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having me. And it was great to chat with you.
Likewise. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you did enjoy it, had lots of takeaways from it. As before, please subscribe below so you can keep on top of any new releases we have. And also, if you would like to have your story told, just reach out with me and I'd love to give you that platform. My best email address is tom@purplepatchconsulting.com. Thank you.